Okay, so today we're working on a 1997 Lexus ES300 with a bad misfire. And what happened was this engine was making a clicking sound, a valve click sound for about the last 50,000 miles. Is a used engine, and I didn't. After I first started it, I realized it had this problem, and it's the rear center cylinder is doing it. But it was getting pretty good gas mileage, and past smog, and was running pretty smooth. So I just didn't really worry about it, and I've been just driving it that way. So the other day, I was getting I got a flashing engine light, and when I was on the freeway, and then it went away, and then I just came by and I parked it, and then the next morning I started it again, and then the engine light was on. It was running real rough. So the first thing I did was check codes. Okay, so let's check the codes. Okay, so we're checking the codes on the Lexus. So we're getting a P0300 random misfire. It's like more than one cylinder, more than likely. There's actually 6 codes. Okay, and they're going to more than likely all be misfire codes. There's a freeze frame for that. Cylinder number 3 is misfiring. 5, and then we got another random misfire. So that's 3. 300, cylinder number 3. 5, another random, 3 again, and 5. So, with that in mind, and the fact that, and then I noticed also that the clicking noise had stopped while I was running rough after the engine light came on. I'm not going to run it now. So the clicking noise had stopped, which the clicking noise I think was a lifter bucket, a lifter follower, and on that cylinder back there. It's like it's hydraulic, and then for some reason, if it can't pump up, you're going to get that noise. But as long as it's doesn't fail or anything, it's just making racket. You don't really want to. You don't really have to deal with it because it's kind of a pretty big job. So the fact that clicking noise went away, and it happened, the rough running started, and then it's not clicking anymore, leads me to believe that lifter bucket, all the clearance in that lifter bucket and more has been taken up. For example, the hydraulic piston in it is now stuck open, and it isn't letting that valve close, which will cause a misfire. We won't get compression in that cylinder, then it's going to misfire. So we're going to check that now to verify that is in fact the problem. So we've already determined that the misfire is more than likely not going to be, in this case, an ignition or a fuel system problem, because it's firing. If it was a fuel system problem, we wouldn't be getting any power at all, but it is running really rough, so it's definitely one or more cylinders has failed. But I don't believe we're going to have a problem with a ignition coil in this case, because of the clicking problem went away when this happened. So I'm thinking that we've got a valve stuck open problem, and it's going to be in cylinder number 3, which is the rear center cylinder on the engine. So we're going to go ahead and check the compression on that and compare it to another cylinder, and then we're going to go from there. Okay. Okay, so we got our compression gauge connected to our rear centered cylinder. It's kind of hard to get to in these cars, which is cylinder number 3. And now we're going to check our compression right now. So what you got to do when you check compression is you have to make sure that the engine doesn't start. So you need the easiest way to do this is if we had an ignition module, then you can just unplug that. But this has got coil on plug. I guess you can disconnect all of the primary connectors to these coils, but I didn't do that. So what we're going to do instead is we're just going to unplug our EFI relay, and that'll disable the fuel injectors, and more than likely the ignition also, so it won't start. So what you got to do is there's a relay, so you're just going to remove the relay. Just grab it, don't break it, and just kind of wiggle it out. There it goes. So now the engine will try to start and do our compression test. Okay, so we're going to just. Okay, now we're getting ready to do our cruise. So you just want to crank the engine over. I don't need to, usually you want to crank it 5 times if you're doing compression for, to compare to other cylinders. But if the problem is what I think it is, it's just going to be 0. So let's go ahead and crank it. See what we get. All right, and the answer is. Okay, so we're not getting any compression there at all. Okay, so let's compare it to another cylinder. So we're not getting any compression there at all. So this is our problem is gonna be compression in this number 3 cylinder. Okay, so we're gonna just to make sure that my compression gauge is working correctly, we're just gonna compare it to another cylinder to make sure that it works. So we're just gonna, this is cylinder number 4. So we're gonna check that right now. Okay, so we're going to crank the engine for cylinder number 4 to check the compression. So here we go. Okay, so as you can see, we're getting 210, which is the correct reading. Okay, so we're definitely going to have a problem with that compression in number 3 cylinder. Another thing I wanted to mention is that you can tell if you got a cylinder with bad compression because when it cranks, you're going to hear a flat spot when it cranks. So when the engine cranks, when an engine with good compression and all the cylinders cranks normally, you'll hear an equal resistance from each of the cylinders. If you have one or more cylinders which are leaking, then you're going to get like a flat spot. So for example, listen to this when I crank it. Okay, did you hear that flat spot? Okay, that means if I actually had a cranking DTAC, snap-on diagnostic tester, it will actually tell me, and I load it in the firing order, and then I synced it to the ignition. It would be able to tell me which cylinder that is, because the load on the battery will change. It'll be a lot less for that cylinder because it doesn't have to compress air, and there's no compression in that cylinder, so it's going to be easier for the starter to be able to crank that cylinder when it gets to that point. So that's just another way to tell. Okay, so now that we checked the compression and we verified that our number 3 cylinder has got low compression, and then it went bad when the clicking, right around that time that the clicking actually stopped. It looks like that valve follower for one of the 4 valves, this engine's got 4 valves per cylinder. I got 2 intake and 2 exhaust. So one of the 4 valves on that cylinder back there is being stuck open. So now we're going to take this apart, and we're going to get our feeler gauge to check our clearance and see which one we're not getting any clearance on. So one of those, more than likely, we're not going to be getting any clearance on that valve. So we're going to proceed to remove the valve covers now. That rear one's going to kind of a pretty big job because you got to take off the intake and a lot of other stuff. So here we go. Okay, so we got our valve cover off of our rear cylinder bank. So now we're going to check our valve clearance. So now the way you do this is you need to make sure that your cam is on the base circle. Okay, so you're not on the toe of the cam. Now the cylinder that we're having a problem with, so there's 4 valves per cylinder. So this is going to be, then these are the cam lobes. This is going to be your intake cam right here, and then here's the exhaust cam for these 3 cylinders. So each cylinder has 4 valves, 2 intake and 2 exhaust. So you can see this is going to be, this is 1 through, this is cylinder 1, this is 3 and 5. So here's cylinder 1, these are the intake lobes, and then here are the exhaust lobes. And then here's the intake, and here's the exhaust of the cylinder that we're concerned with. And then this is going to be cylinder 3, and then this is cylinder 5. So let's check our clearance right now. So I've already rotated. Now the way you rotate this is you just got to get on your crank pulley with a big socket, and I've just turned this around to get that cylinder to the base circle. So to be on the base circle, you've got to, okay, so then what you want to do is you want to make sure that your intake, and actually I've turned it farther than it needed to go, but right after your intake cam lobe, and this is turning clockwise, closes, then you know that the exhaust will also be on, because it's intake strokes is intake, compression, power, and exhaust. So after the exhaust stroke, the exhaust valve will open. Immediately after that comes the intake stroke for the next cycle. And then when that intake valves are closed, then you can adjust all the valves for that cylinder. So, and the way you can tell is, here's an example here. This is one we're concerned with. So the toes on the exhaust cams are pointing up, so I can adjust these. And then the toes on these intake cams are pointing sideways. Actually, I turned it a lot farther than it needed to go. But as long as you're on the base circle of the cam against the lifter, you'll be okay. So we can adjust. So we can check the adjustment of these now. Okay. So the adjustment, or the clearance spec for this on the exhaust side, is 10 to 14 thousandths, and the intake side is 6 to 10 thousandths of an inch. So we're gonna check these now with our gauge. So what you do is you're just gonna take the gauge, and the gauge just goes between the lobe of the cam and the follower. So the follower is this round thing on the bottom. So let's check the exhaust first. Okay, so let's check our adjustment here. Okay, so we got our 6 thousandths gap for our exhaust. So this is the cam lobe. So this needs to slide right between here when it's on a base circle. And you see it does. So you got 6. You're allowed 6. Okay, let's try the other side now. And this isn't fitting at all. That's not good. That's going to be our problem. So this valve isn't closing. And I got a feeling that this lifter internally is the piston inside of that hydraulic part is stuck up, and it's pushing, and it's not letting that valve close. This one's okay. Check it again. So that's going, that's sliding in there good. And let's see, let me actually check. That's not working. Okay, that's 6 thousandths. Okay, so we're going to check that clearance again. So this is a 0.002 of an inch gapper gauge. So let's try the 0.002. And this side's obviously this isn't a problem, but this one here is our issue. So let's try it here. And this is not going in. I have no clearance on this cam lobe. So that's going to be that's going to be my problem. That's about as thin as that. It's just there's no clearance, so the valve isn't closing. So that's a problem. Okay, so this is gonna be it. Let's check the intakes while we're at it. So actually, I made an error. The exhaust you're allowed 10,000s, and the intake you're allowed 6,000. Because the exhaust runs hotter, and you need a bigger clearance because the parts will expand under the heat, and the exhaust gets hotter because there's no fuel to cool off the valve, so the parts expand more, so you need more of a clearance so it doesn't bind up and you lose all the clearance and stuff like this happens. So on the intake I'm allowed 6,000, so let's try the intake. So I can use 6,000 on the intake, so I'm going to try that. So we're back to our 6,000s because you're allowed so we're back to our 6,000s gauge. You can see it, you can barely see it. There's this. So we're going to check our intakes with the 6,000s. So on the base circle. So that's going there, good. That's pretty loose. And let's try this one here. Okay, that one's good too. So this is that one exhaust. Now, what you want to do is you want to check all your clearances on all these valves, and then just make like yourself a little chart to see what you're actually getting. And then the way that this is adjusted is that there are these shims, and we'll show you that later. There are these shims that go between this lifter top and the base or this might actually be shimmed, and there's shims that go. It's either I haven't had it apart yet, but they go between this lifter, inside of this lifter bucket, and then you put different thicknesses in there. Then that'll determine your clearance. So they give you this chart. So the first thing you do is you make yourself a chart, and then just put each cylinder's clearance. You know, you got to crank the engine around for each cylinder, do it according to the firing order, and then make yourself a chart. So we're going to do that right now. Okay, so when you do this, it's probably a good idea, because what we're going to do is I'm going to check the clearance of all of these valves. So what you should do is you should make up a chart. Here's a chart I kind of made up, and the firing, and you want to adjust the valves. And here, these are the cylinder numbers, the way it's laid, the cylinder assignments. And then you got 2 exhausts and 2 intake valves per each cylinder. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the clearance of what we're getting for each cylinder. Okay, this will be the front of the car. Here's these 3. This is going to be 2, 4, and 6. So this is 2, 4, and 6. And then we're just going to write all of our clearances in these blanks, and then we're going to see what we're getting, and then we're going to make our adjustments after we take this, put this back together again. Now, what you need to do is you've got to use the firing order. The firing order, this is really cute, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So right now we're working on 3. So after we check our number 3 clearances, we're going to rotate the engine to the next cylinder in the firing order, which is 4, which is here. I need to take off this valve cover actually. And we're going to check the clearances there. Like after the intake side closes, then we can check the clearances on both sides. On cylinder number 4, we watch cylinder number 5, we crank the engine around again. So it's a several step procedure. So here we go. Okay, so we're going to do our exhaust first. So our exhaust specs are 10 to 14 thousandths, and this is measured. You got to make sure that it's cold, because it needs to be cold to work on this. And by the time you get all this apart, the engine's going to be really cold. So, which makes sense. Okay, so cold, the clearances will actually close up a thousandth or two when the engine is hot. So these are cold specs. So for our exhaust side, 10 to 14 thousandths. So we're going to check our exhaust on that one cylinder that we got. So here is a, let's try with a 12 thousandths first. See what we're getting here. So here's a 12. And a 12 fits, actually. 12 it should fit snugly. Should fit snug. You know, it's good. That's 12. Okay. Okay, let's see how good a 13 fits. Here's a 13 right here. I don't know if you can see it, but this is a 13. And let's try a 13 right now. Now that 13 isn't really going. Okay, so we're going to call that, well, it's really, it's too tight. It's like a 12. We're going to call that 12. So that's 12. So you're within specs because you're allowed 10 to 14. So that's okay. So that's where we entered our clearance for that one. This one here, we have no clearance. We're just going to put 0 for this here. Okay, now we can do the intakes. So on our cylinder number 3, let's check the intakes. You're allowed 6 through 10. We're going to try a 7. There's a 7. 7 goes in there. Kind of snug, but that's good. It's going right. And let's try it. Put it over in this one here, in this other intake valve. That's good. So let's see, 8 goes. Here's an 8. The 8 didn't fit. All right, so that's about like that's within tolerance. Okay, so we're just going to do all these valves now. So when the next cylinder is going to be, the firing order is 4. So let's bring that one around. So I'm going to take this off. Okay, so now we just took off the valve cover to get access to these valves. So the next cylinder in the firing order was 4, which is this one right here. So what you do is the cams are turning in opposite directions. So when this is turning this way, this one's going to turn this way. This is going to be turning this way, and this is turning this way. So right after the intake closes, you want to you know that you're on the base circle of the intake and exhaust. You're on the exhaust stroke, or you're on you're coming up on the compression stroke. So you're right after the intake stroke. I'm sorry. So let's check the clearance. So we're completing our valve clearance chart. We actually had an exhaust, number 6 exhaust, this exhaust valve right here. This one here was actually 1,000th too large. You're allowed up to 14, and we're getting 16. So other than that, we're doing fairly well. We got a few that are right on the line here. There's a 14. That's a 14. We got a couple 14s up there. So we might just re-clearance all of the valves just to get them nice and within right within the middle of the specs. Okay, so let's continue with this. Okay, so now we're on cylinder number. Okay, so let's check on our exhaust valve. There's going to be our 12 thousandths right here. That's a 12 thousandths gauge. So let's check the exhaust valve here. So 12 looks like it's going pretty good on that one. On this side, it's also working well. Okay, let's try a 13. So this is going to be our last cylinder. We got our cam intake side. We got it on the intake just closed, and we're on the compression stroke. So we got all of our lobes pointing upwards or away from the. Got to make sure that it's on the base circle is what you're after. You don't want the lifter to be anywhere on the ramp of the lobe where you're going to get a wrong reading and you're going to make wrong repairs. So, all right, so let's check our intake. So here's a 7,000. You're allowed 6 to 10. So 7's fitting pretty easily through there. That's a 7. Okay. Okay, so there's all of our clearances. So they're all pretty much within tolerance, except for our problem cylinder back here, which is number 3, and that exhaust valve right here. This is going to be the one we need to get the new lifter on, and so that's going to be what we're going to be doing next. We're going to take the valve train apart. Okay, so we're getting ready to remove the timing belt. So when you do this, you've got to make sure that you've got the marks lined up on the cam sprockets and the crank sprocket correctly. So on the crank sprocket, you've got so on the crank sprocket you've got this mark on the front of the timing, on the front of the engine case. It's a little kind of around it. It isn't real clear with these Toyota Lexus engines, but it'll line up with a round mark. Okay, so here's our marks lined up. So you've got the this thing keeps getting out of focus. I can't. So there's a little round mark on the front of the crankcase, and then that's going to line up with that mark on the sprocket. So that's lined up. Okay, so that's for the crank. And then for the cam sprockets, you've got a mark here on this sprocket here. That's going to line up with, and this was actually painted, but there's a little indentation in the top of this sheet metal for the cams. So that needs to line up, and you can kind of look at the length of the tooth on the sprocket, and that should line up right with there. Same thing on this one. This mark right here is going to line up with this, and that's an inscribed mark on the front of the cam. And sometimes you can paint it to make it clear, or it might already have some white out on or something. So now that that's all lined up, we can remove this timing belt, and then we can take out the cams. Okay, then when you take off these cam sprockets, it's important, you got to know which sprocket goes where, because one has got the ridge on it here, the lip, to kind of keep the belt from coming off, and then one doesn't. So this is going to be the 246 cylinders, 246 sprocket, and that's going to be 135. And then when you take these off, you got to grab these. I just did it, but you need to be able to grab this sprocket with a tool. So I have a. Okay, so when you take off these sprockets, they have a tool. Toyota makes a tool to grab this thing with, but I don't have that. So what I use instead is I have this pipe chain grabbing tool, and it works real good. And then what you have to do though is you got to wrap the chain with some kind of rag, because you don't want to damage this sprocket teeth. So you just wrap it around the chain. I've already actually loosened it, and then this thing just kind of will lock on the sprocket. So you don't want to damage the sprocket. This thing is just going to kind of lock on here. I'm not going to lock it as tight as I had it, but. And then now you can grab this. You can loosen this bolt. I had already loosened it, because it's on real tight. This bolt is on super tight, especially if you haven't run it in a while. They get tighter, I think. So just kind of get, or you can get the Toyota tool to grab the sprocket with, and then just, this is like a 17 millimeter bolt. Okay, so now we're getting ready to remove the cams. Okay, an important note before you remove these cams is these cam sprot gears, if you notice, one is split. The exhaust is split and the intake isn't. Now the reason for that is because you've got, this is actually spring loaded. So what I mean by that is that this, when you remove this, if you don't maintain the position of this split gear, this gear will, you know, it's going to move a lot. One half of the gear is going to move a lot compared to the other. And then the reason for that is because the spring tension is keeping tension against the teeth, maintain tension against the teeth of this gear, so you don't have any looseness between the teeth, so it runs quiet. It's pretty ingenious, actually. But the problem is that if you remove this without holding this thing in place first, then you're going to have, and you've got to put that back. You got to kind of return this gear back the way it was. Then you're going to have a heck of a time doing that. So the idea is you actually put a bolt. So there's a hole here in the this side of the gear. You can see this hole, and then it's threaded through. So this is going to be the hole that we're going to put a bolt in, and that's going to hold the position of that gear, so I can take off this cam. Okay, so we're going to do that right now. So here are the bolts you need to use. They're 6 millimeter by 6 millimeter. There. Okay, so here's the bolts you want to use. They're 6 millimeter by 1. It's 1 thread per millimeter by 20 millimeters long bolts. Okay. So what you do is you're just gonna put this in here, and you don't want to use a bolt that's too long because it's going to come out a little bit. This one's going to come out. It would have been better if I used something a little shorter, but this is fine. This is going to be okay, I think. Okay, you want to tighten that. Okay, so we're going to tighten that. Okay, so we got our cam bolt installed. Okay, now the next step is you've got to align. Now there's 2 sets of dots on this. There's a single dot, and then there's the dual dots. Now, according to the instructions, it's important that when you disassemble this, that the single dots are aligned with each other on the left-hand head, and the dual dots are aligned with each other on the right-hand head. And the reason why that's important is that ensures that the cams come up level when the caps are removed, so there's no damage done to the camshafts or the cylinder head. So that's this one. So when you remove this, you want to loosen the outside bolts first and work towards the middle. Okay, so we just got our camshaft off, and then here's the followers. So we got, the problem is with okay, so it's going to be this one had 0, so it's cylinder number 3. That exhaust had no clearance. So that's going to be yeah, this, okay. Yeah, this one is up. And that's going to be the problem. Alright, so let's take this. I got a magnet here. Oh gosh. Oh boy, okay, so our retainer has come off. Here's the retainer and the lock. Okay, so I just want to make sure that this valve is not sticky. It didn't bend. Okay, good. It's moving. It's going. I think it's okay. It is sticky though. It's very sticky. That's going to be. That's why it failed to begin with. The valve is sticking. Okay, so the valve is loose, so that's a good sign. Alright. What the trick is going to be replacing this valve keeper. It looks like that the keeper's damaged anyway. I think that the valve groove is okay. Okay, so that's going to be what we. And they have tools that you can do this with the head on the engine. So what we're going to do next is we're going to get a valve, another bucket, another follower. Oh yeah, the follower. Put on the follower. Here's a comparative. This is what it should look like. This is a good one. This is one that isn't damaged. And then here's the one that, this is our failed. So this whole part of the piston, the end of it's worn out and broken off. And that was from the valve sticking all that time. And I just kind of beat it up really bad. And this is what we got. We got to get another one of these also. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to check all these rest of these lifter buckets while we're waiting. We ordered a tool from Lyle. It's a valve spring retainer removal tool with the head on the engine, because we got to reinstall that valve retainer back there. And then what it is, it's like a cylindrical thing with a punch, and you hit it with a hammer. So what we're going to do is we're going to check. So until we had to order it from Amazon. So we're going to wait a day or so to get that. So what we're going to check now is we're going to check to see what other valve parts we're going to need. So based on all of our clearances here, we're going to just look at each of these lifter buckets, see if we got anything else that's worn out. That one, that, as we saw before, is really bad, so that obviously needs to be replaced. But we're going to check the rest of this. So you can just get your magnet and just kind of pull on these things. And then if you look in the end of that, you can kind of see the condition of it in here. And I think that's okay. That's the little pin that's going to hit the valve. Okay, so that's going to be good. When you do these, you can't mix them up. Do not, because that's matched to that cam lobe. If you mix them up, you're going to wear out the cam, or wear out the lifter. Both. Okay, so here's this one had. This one is going to be 16 thousandths. And it's this spec right here. Now it looks like it's got a little bit of metal. This one has got a little bit of metal fragments inside of it. And I could feel like a little ridge in here anyway. Like this part of it is worn out. So this is I'm gonna replace this one. This is more clearance than this past max you're allowed up to 14. This is already at 16, so this is wearing out, so this needs to be replaced. So that's going to go. Okay. There's the next one. I don't really feel a ridge. I think we can probably get away with that one. That's going to be okay. one's good. That was actually 12 thousandths clearance before. So the spec on this is you're allowed so this is the exhaust, you're allowed 10 to 14 thousandths. So, you know, I'm looking like for 12 as ideal. We got somewhere right on the edge there on the line. One is over. If it's over, you definitely got to replace it. Okay, this one here is 14. I can feel a little bit of a ridge on this one, really. Oh, it's got a little bit of a ridge here. That one's got a little bit too. So anyway, if it's on the edge of your spec, if it's on the limit, the limit of the tolerance, and you're feeling like a little ridge in here, this is the valve wear. You see the shiny areas where the valve's been pounding against it. So that's been worn. So we're going to replace this one too. So that's the way you check. Okay. So this one is an intake. This is number 6 intake right here. So it's at 0.7, and these are allowed, I think it was 6 through 10. So we're on really the low side, which is really good. Intakes are usually better anyway. And you can see this one is in really good shape. Well, it doesn't have any kind of ridge at all. I can't even feel hardly anything in my fingernail. So that one's not worn at all. So this is going to be fine. So the intakes usually fare better. Okay, so right now we want to make sure that valve works freely. So what I'm doing, you got to make sure that the piston is up and that the valve won't fall into the cylinder, which isn't a problem with this because it's a little tight right now in the guide, and I think it's got carbon buildup. So what we're going to do, I'll show what I'm talking about. So here's our valve, and it goes up and down, but it's kind of sticky, and I think that was really the source of what made that lifter wear out and fail. Is this sticking valve? So, and I'm hoping that it's just going to be a carbon problem. So we're going to try to clear out the carbon inside of there, and hopefully that's going to fix it. So what we're going to do is you got to remove the valve stem seal. So here's the old, I don't know if you can see anything, it's kind of dark. But here's the old valve stem seal. So you want to remove the valve stem seal first, because what we're going to do then is we're going to put a hose over that guide. And we're going to soak that with sea foam for a little while. Okay, so what we're going to do is we got a hose set up here. And this hose is going to go over, this end of the hose is going to go over the valve guide. And then we're going to fill this up with sea foam. And then we're going to let it soak for about a day or so and see if that hopefully that's going to clear off any carbon or whatever's causing that valve to stick. It's going to clean it off. So now this fits a little tight, so we're going to get a tie wrap. Okay, so we're just going to put a tie wrap around this thing, so make sure it seals under pretty good around the valve, end of the valve guide. And then we're going to put it on there. Trim off your excess. Okay, so we're going to stick this over our guide. Okay, so that's on the guide pretty good. And then get yourself a funnel. Here's your funnel. Okay, so we're just going to fill this up with sea foam. Okay, so here's our sea foam. This stuff is pretty good for dissolving carbon and all that. So we're going to just fill up that funnel with sea foam. On it good and tight, okay. Okay, so that's let that kind of run down in there, and that's hopefully is going to clear off any carbon you've got causing that thing to stick. All right, here we go. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're pouring Marvel Mystery Oil over the valve guide back here. We want to soak Marvel Mystery Oil over the guide right here. But in order to do that, now we want to kind of operate this while we're doing that. So what I did is I made this little fixture here. So what this is going to do is this is going to slip over the guide. I already took the seal off, so this can slip over the guide tightly. And then we're going to pour Marvel Mystery Oil in here, and it's big enough now where I can grab it with a pair of needle nose pliers, needle nose vice grip pliers, which is right here. So we're going to put this over this thing right here first. It needs to fit over there nice and tight over that guide. There it goes, it's on there good now. Okay, so now what we're going to do then is we're going to fill this up with Marvel Mystery Oil. And now I can grab that with this needle nose. Okay, so now we're going to add Marvel Mystery Oil to our valve guide, our valve stem. And then we can work that with that oil in there. So here's our nifty, we got a nice neck down funnel set up here. So what you can do is stick that thing right in there. Put some oil in there. Right. Take long to fill up. Now that we got oil in there and it's full, we can work this up and down. So then just keep filling it, and doesn't need a lot because I've got a lot of volume in this little thing. And then just work that again. Hopefully we're going to get a nice free valve here. Anyway, that's the idea. So keep doing that until it's nice and free. Okay, so we had to pull the head off because I wasn't really happy about this valve. So you see, it's still it should be really easy to pull in and out, and I couldn't, and we soaked it in WD-40, and I used Marvel Mystery Oil and all kinds of stuff, but it's still sticking. So we had to pull the head off. Okay, so the first thing I want to check is when you do this, you got to make sure that the valve isn't bent. And I don't think it is. I think it's so what you're going to do then, pull it all the way out, and if it's bent, it's not going to seal. So here's our combustion chamber right here. Let's get a picture of this right here. And then this is going to be our valve, this guy. So what you do is get yourself some WD-40 and then just spray it, and you know, like this is what it's supposed to do. Here's a cylinder that's probably not going to leak. Just fill it up here, and the bubbles are going to go away. But just look at your fluid; shouldn't be draining out really fast. So that's what it should do. Okay, so let's try that. This is my possible bent valve. So if it's bent, it is going to seal and it's going to all leak out. So let's fill this one up here. And let's see how good it's doing here. So I think it's going to be okay. I don't really see any. Let's kind of tilt that over on that valve. Because this is the valve I'm concerned with, this one right here. So let's kind of fill this up. I don't want anything. Let me see, I don't know. Maybe we've got a problem. Yeah, it might be leaking a little bit there. So yeah, we're going to have to take this to the machine shop and see what they can come up with. So, okay, so that's the next step. So we replaced our exhaust valve right here, and we got a new seal, and the valve was, and then a new retainer locks. So let's kind of look at. Okay, so let's check the sealing now. We're going to just get some WD-40 again. And just check, see how good the seal. So what you do, just get some WD-40 and just spray it in the combustion chamber. Especially on that valve. We're going to compare it to another one here. See the difference. No, the bubbling go away. Yeah, it looks like it's sealing pretty well. I think that'll be fine. So that's what you want. Alright, so we just got to reassemble it and we'll be ready to roll. Okay, so we're going to check the cam run out on this engine now, because I'm kind of wondering if maybe when I disassembled it, I didn't really have the marks lined up correctly. So this might be a little bit of overkill, but I just want to make sure everything is good. So and then you'll so we just want to make sure everything is straight and we don't have anything warped or anything or bent. So our camshaft run out, which is going to be our circle run out, is you're allowed 0.00, so that's 2.4 thousandths. So about 2.5 thousandths you're allowed maximum. So let's go check that right now. Okay, so here's our cam is just kind of installed in the saddles. So we want to check the run out of the journals, these here, for run out. So you need a dial indicator. So the way this sets up is it's got a magnetic base, and you kind of it attaches to something steel. It's on the starter here in this case, and then you just got to kind of move these attachment points, these booms and these arms and everything, and tighten them so it rests right on the thing. And then this has got a spring load, and then that's going to rest on. I'm kind of concerned with this. This end was kind of, a little more critical. So you're allowed 2.5. So each mark is 1,000th of an inch. So you're allowed a little bit more than 2. So let's zero this here. And all you gotta do really is turn the cam. So here we go. Let's just go ahead and turn this. And it's not gonna. Now I got the lifters out of the thing, so this is gonna only turn so much before, because I wanted to be able to turn this without having tension on it while it's just laying in here.
So that's how you do it. So we're just going to turn this. Now you're allowed about 2 marks. So we're going to maybe get half a turn out of this. Let's see what we get here. That's maybe 1,000. Okay, we already checked the other side. And I think we're going to be okay, actually. So you're getting about 1,000th of an inch run out. Not quite, so I think we're going to be okay. Alright. Okay, so now we're going to check the intake cam for run out. So again, you want to make this thing is spring loaded, and then you want to 0 this before you do anything. So make sure you got it right on your 0 point right there, and then that's good. Okay, then you just turn your you're not allowed more than 2.5 thousand, so about 2.5 thousandths. But we got to flip it over because we're not going to get a full turn out of it. Let's see what we. That's not really anything like half a thousandth. That's good. Okay, so here we go. We're going to check the run out of the intake cam. And we got it, this end of it. There we go. That's almost 2 thousandths. Maybe not, maybe it's just sticking a little. That's pretty good, really. Make sure that your thing's rolling on the bottom. It's actually contacting your whatever you're checking for. That seems to be good. Okay, so now we're going to check our thrust clearance for the cam. So our clearance spec on this is you're allowed 16 10,000ths to 35 10,000ths of an inch. So the way you do that is you want to get your cam all set up, put on your cam caps, torque and all that, and then get your dial. You want to use a dial indicator, and set it up, 0 it, make sure it's at 0. Okay, and then what we're going to do now is we're just going to kind of move our cam back and forth here and watch. So you're allowed, so we need 1 to 35, 16 10,000ths to 35 10,000ths of an inch. So I get this nice and zeroed here. This thing is a little bit, kind of keeps moving here, so you want to kind of. Okay, so you're just going to move the cam here, so just kind of get a screwdriver, just kind of pry it one way. It's not going to move much, but we need to get at least, so that's about a little over 1,000th. It's a little less, so that should be okay. A little more than 1,000th. So you need like 16 10,000ths. It's a little tight, so you need to get 16/10,000ths of an inch. About 1.5 thousandths, a little over. So that's barely enough. That might be okay. A little less than a, that's a point there. So you need about 1.5 marks.
So these are our these are our spec our valve clearance after we changed these lifters. Now I wanted to change, this one needed to be changed. This was 16/10,000ths, you're allowed 14 on the outside. So I changed them, it didn't really make any difference. That one didn't make any difference. This one made about 1,000th of a difference, but this one really made, this one was, this was at 16 before, which is this one here. And now it's good. That was out of spec, so now we're on the edge of the high end. Actually, it's just 12 is ideal, but we're going to stick with that. All right.
Okay, so now we're going to check the thrust clearance on this, the intake cam. So the setup to get the dial indicator was a little more involved. We had to kind of get some clearance to the starter to find a magnetic point to put the magnetic base, because it needs to be a steel part, and then the engine is aluminum, so you can't really use that. So one thing when you do that is you have to make sure that you do not, when you're because if you notice, this will move. If I just push on the car a little bit, sometimes it does it. But anyway, don't put your hand on the car. You can't touch the car at all when you're doing this, because it'll affect your readings. Just make sure you've got a good solid point of reference there, and then you can check it. Okay. So here we go again. We want about 1.5 thousand, 1.6 thousandths, so the same as the other. So just get your screwdriver and then just move this both ways. A little over 1.5 thousandths, and you're getting about that. So it's like 1.5 marks from one end to the other. So that's a little about 1.3, and that's about it. So I think we're going to barely make our minimum spec was 1.6 thousandths, or 16/10,000. So I think we're going to be good. Okay, that's the intake cam thrust clearance. Okay, another thing you got to make sure when you're installing these cams is you've got to make sure that these dots are lined up with each other. Now you've got two sets of dots. You got one dot, single dots, and then you got the dual dots. This has got two dots right here, as you can see, two dots. Okay, but the singles got to be matched up. So on the left head, which is this head, the left hand side, but the point is, you can't load the cam with stress from the valve springs. They want to keep it as flat as possible when you install it, or else you can damage the saddles, because the end thrust in this thing is real tight, and you don't want to screw that up because the cam might seize or something later. You don't want that to happen. So on this left-hand side, and then you need to have them lined up for timing's sake anyway. So they need to be one dot against the other one dot. So the left head. So when on the left head, when you got one dot lined up, then you can install the cams in that position. Okay, now the right head is going to be the double dots. So we're going to do that in a minute. But that's real critical. You want to make sure that these cams are going in nice and flat and straight, and you're not cockeyed, or you don't want to damage the thrust area on the saddles here, which are aluminum. Because if you do, you're going to lose your thrust clearance, which we just checked for, and that's going to be probably cause havoc maybe later. Okay. Another thing, when you're installing these cam caps, you got to make sure that these things are numbered for a reason. So this one it says, and you can see the E there, and then this is E2. That means it's going to be from the front of the engine. You're counting back, and then there's an arrow, and the arrow always points towards the front. It's really light. I don't know if you can see it there. This will be E3, and the arrow is always pointing towards the front of the engine, or the belt side, the timing belt end of the engine. And there's E4. So that's real important, because this cap is matched to this bore, and if you get them mixed up, it's going to not be round, and it's going to probably seize the cam eventually as you drive it. So don't get those mixed up. And make sure, same thing here. And the E's for exhaust is intake. So this will be I's. Here's an I, I2, I3, 4 and 5. Okay. And here's the other exhaust. I'm getting ready to put these on the back head. Make sure those are correct.
Okay, so we're re-gapping our valves. So this is our first readings before we did our, and then this is our problem. This exhaust valve was the one that was had a failed lock, and then the valve was all the way up against the cam, so there was no clearance at all. And then here were the specs we were getting, and we're all within specification, obviously, except for this. These were a little loose, but that's okay. We want to get 12 thousandths, so we're rechecking our specs again, and they've changed a little bit. Actually, these two actually closed up. The bottom closed up. These were 14 tight. Now they're running 12. Our failed lifter is coming in perfect. Just what we need. So we just changed the lifter on that. We put on the old shim. These things got these shims on the top of the lifter. And then this one here now is running really tight at 8 thousandths. Oh, that is our that's our failed one. Okay, so we're rechecking our clearances, our valve clearances. This was, as we mentioned before, this was our previous valve clearance before we took everything apart. And this, you can see, this is our failed valve with the failed valve block, which caused the valve to push all the way up against the cam. So we're getting no clearance there. Here we're getting 12 thousandths. These were a little loose, but they're within spec. So now we're checking them again, and these are the same. And now here's the one that replaced, but now it's reading kind of on the tight side. So what we're going to have to do is get a thinner shim for that one. This one's these two are reading a little tighter now, also for some reason. I don't know why. It's like 1,000th tighter than it was. So we got to change the shim on this here, which was probably expected. So we got to get like 4,000th inch thinner shim. And I'm going to show you how to do that.
So the way you adjust this, and I think we showed you how to do this before, is the first thing is you need to make sure that the cam is on the base circle where it rubs against the lifter. So the base circle is this lower part, not this is the ramp and this is the heel or the toe of the cam. You don't want it in either one of those. You want it on the foot, whatever this we used to call the base circle. So if you have the points pointing up, then you're okay. Okay. So then you get your feeler gauge, and then this is going to now go between the lobe and the lifter right under here. So you just stick it in there so an 8 doesn't go. So that's not going to be 8. Let's try a 7. 7 is this one. So let's stick a 7 in there. Yeah, 7 works. So that's 7. That's like 7 thousandths. Let's do this next one here. So I think this one actually will is going to be an 8. Okay, and that's an 8,000. So that fits right between the lifter and the base circle of the cam. It's got to be a nice tight fit. So if an 8 works, then go up 1. You keep going up until it doesn't fit. So let's see, a 9, and I don't think a 9 is going to work, but okay. So the best way to adjust these valves is, and to get it on the base circle, is you just put in your camshaft sprocket bolt into the exhaust cam, and then you got it's all engaged. Make sure that your marks were also, when you installed these, that you had the two dots. You can't see them now, but on this side it was the 2 dots on each gear had to match to each gear. Okay, and then you can just crank it around. Now we're going to do cylinder number 1. We got to do the intake saw on that, so we got to get these lobes up. So you just crank this around. This thing will actually pilot at different spots. So now that's it. Now I can adjust cylinder number 1. All right. Check it anyway. Okay, so here's our number 3 exhaust lifter in question. So the shim that we're going to change is this top piece. You see where this separation is? This is the shim, is this part here where it rubs against the cam. So this will actually come off. See, it's kind of turning there because there's just a film of oil between it. And then it's got a thickness number stamped on the back of it, which we're going to see here in a second. And then they give you a chart which shows you the different the different thicknesses, and then so we need to get one that's 4/1000ths thinner than this, so we get our spec up, because right now we're at 8/1000ths. And we want to get it 12 is like right in the middle between 10 and 14. So we want to get 4/1000ths of an inch thinner shim than this. Okay, so let's see what kind of shim we got here. Let me take this apart right now and look at it. So one way you could use to get this, if the shim sticks, which this one is doing, because there's a film of oil between it, so it's acting like glue between it and the top of the lifter. So what you can do is you can get some solvent and then just spray solvent on this, and then it'll get in the crack and dissolve that oil, and that should let this thing come off a little bit easier. So let's try to do that. Okay, so go ahead and get your carburetor cleaner, whatever you're going to use, and just spray this. Get it in there. And then you want to get it in the crack, so it's in there, it's all this oil. Spin it around. Really, there's a little notch here, but you just want to, there it goes. And then you just kind of peel that up. It's really, the fit is really tight at this thing, so you got to kind of, there it goes. Alright. Okay, now the bottom, as you can see, it's got a little I think that looks like a 35. So the cylinder head shop was kind of nice enough to give us a shim, a used one from a used lifter, and but there's no number on it, so we're just going to mic it and see if it's any different from the one that we have. So we're just going to use our digital readout here on our, and so what we're going to do is we're going to mic our, this is the shim that we just removed, so we don't have to worry about adding up our numbers here on our barrel, on our spool, whatever you want to call this thing here, and you just read the thickness directly on our readout here. So let's see what we're getting. So let's go ahead and put this on, right in the middle. This is when it stops. Okay, so this is about 114 thousandths, 114.5 thousandths of an inch thick. So we need to get one that's 110 thousandths, more or less, thick. Very good. All right, let's see what this other used one is. Here's the one from the cylinder head shop.
And this is what we're going to get on this one here. And this is also 114,000. So that's not going to help us at all. So we need to get like 110 thousandths. All right. So our next step is to get a thinner shim, 4,000 thinner. Okay. Okay, so they give you these charts when you're trying to figure out what shim to use. And to be honest with you, it looks pretty idiotic. This part here shows you the thickness on the left, first in millimeters, then in inches. That's your amount of clearance. And then, I don't know if this is the desired amount of clearance. That's the measured, and then the installed shim thickness. Because I don't know why I need to do all of this. And then you got, and then you just, and then it gives you the shim thickness here. Installed shim thickness in millimeters and inches. So you want 110 thousandths. So that's 2.8 looks like. And then, you know what, I don't want to deal with this. Okay, so basically is what we have 114, we need 110 thousandths thickness shim, okay? This tells you the thickness, and that's a shim number. So 110 thousandths looks like a number 7 shim. Simple. So we need to get a number 7 shim. I don't know why this says 35 on it. I don't know what 35 means. It looks like it was a 35 to me, or an 85 or something like that. But it doesn't, there isn't a 35 on this chart. It's not 35 thousandths of an inch thick, so I don't know what it means. So we're just going to go with getting a number 7 shim, which is 110 thousandths thickness, and then that should do it. Okay. Okay, so here's our new shim, and it's stamped on the back 2800, so that means 2.8 millimeters thick. There's a number according to our little chart here. So that's going to be the equivalent of 110 or 1,102 ten thousandths, or 110.2 thousandths thick. So that should be our really make our clearance correct now. So let's go ahead and measure this just to check it. Okay, so this is going to be our old shim with the unknown number on the back. And as we measured this before, we're getting about 114.5 thousandths. Okay, so we needed something that was going to be about 4 thousandths thicker, because our clearance was 8 thousandths, and we want to get it about 12. Right in the middle there is what I'm going for. So this needs to be about 110 thousandths, and that'll be correct. And it says it is. I just want to check everything. And let's check this now. And we're getting like right about 110 thousandths. That's what we wanted. All right, good. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and check our clearance again. We just got our thinner shim installed for 4 thousandths thinner. So if we want 12 thousandths is our ideal we want. So let's go ahead and check it. And this is our new clearance shim. So that's going in there good now. That's nice. That's really ideal. See what this one is. And that's a 12 too. So that's going to be what we want right there. Alright, so that's all. That's good. I'll check the rest of them. We're good. We continue to reassemble the engine, and we'll be running soon. Okay, another thing that's important to realize is when you're doing this, if you get a clacking lifter, like in my case, and you think you're just going to
get a new shim, because there's a lot of people online I've noticed Toyota makes a tool that you can actually remove this shim with the cam installed, and it collapses. You push down on the valve, and then you can get that shim out, and then you can replace it with the shim you need. But if you're getting a lot of clearance, there's a good chance that this lifter bucket is bad, and you're not going to be able to get a shim thick enough to make up the difference, and then you're going to need to replace it anyway. So, for example, this was our bad lifter bucket. Now, as you can see, here's a good one, or here's one that's usable. And the valve, and as you can see, the valve wear is right there at that point. Now, if it's worn down as far as it did, like it did in this one, it's actually worn a hole in that area where the valve rides, and that's like a lot more than a few thousands. That's probably maybe even 40,000 or something like that. It's a lot of difference. So you're not going to be able to make up the difference using shim. So if you get in there and you get like a 40 thousandths clearance or something that's a lot, you're looking at changing this lifter bucket. Don't try to. You're not going to be able to get a shim that thick. And then if you don't try to use if you try to shim it out and make something up, this thing is eventually going to, like it happened with me, it pushes on the lock and the retainer because the valve is going up, and then it's going to push on the lock, and then it's just going to release that valve lock, and then the valve might drop in the cylinder, and you're going to, I mean, I was lucky I didn't get any cylinder damage. It just kind of pushed up, But that's a possibility. So make sure that if you check this, if you're getting like 40 thousandths of an inch clearance, then this is going to be the problem. Okay, so we got the engine back together again. You can hear the clicking noise. I should have recorded the engine before, but it had the clicking noise, and I didn't do it. So anyway, it's got all our clearances set. Final clearances. Hey, how you doing? So here's our final clearance specifications. And they were varying by a thousandth or two here or there, but these were a little on the big side. I think you're allowed up to 14. We're a thousandth over there, but other than that, they're all within tolerance. You're allowed 6 to 8 on the intake. I think 10 to 14 on the exhaust. So for some reason, that one got a little bigger. Our problem child cylinder is this one here, and that's much better now. Yeah, that was a bad one. So yeah, running good. So the engine's running. There's no codes, no check engine light. And so there you have it. Leaking time. So this is Steve at Car Inspectors again. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something today. Thank you very much. Please subscribe to my channel.